Commander Vexrel stared at the holographic display with all four of his eyes wide open. The symbols on the screen made no sense. They showed something impossible happening at the outer defense grid of Anchor Point 7. His clawed hands moved quickly across the control panel, checking the data again and again. The result stayed the same. A single ship had broken through the first defensive layer. Then the second. Now it was tearing through the third layer like it was made of paper. This had never happened before. Not in 300 years. Commander, the readings are confirmed, his sensor operator said. Her voice shook slightly. One vessel. Human design. It's damaged but still moving forward. Vexrel felt his scales ripple with unease. Humans. The newcomers to the galactic community. The species that barely had 50 years of space travel experience. They were supposed to be primitive. Aggressive, yes, but primitive. The Kaldrith Empire had been exploring the stars for thousands of years. How could a single human ship do this? What weapons are they using? Vexrel demanded. That's the strange part, Commander. They're using kinetic force, ramming tactics. They're smashing through our defensive platforms with their own hull. Vexrel couldn't believe what he was hearing. No sane captain would use such tactics. The damage to their own ship would be catastrophic. He watched the display as the human battleship continued its advance. The vessel was leaking atmosphere and trailing debris. Parts of its armor were melting from weapons fire. Yet it kept coming. Identification? Vexrel asked. UNSC Indomitable. Striker-class battleship. Crew complement usually around 400. Current life signs show only 89 aboard. A skeleton crew. This was getting worse. Vexrel opened a communication channel to his superiors at the Fortress Command Center. High Admiral Korseth appeared on his screen. The old warrior looked annoyed at being disturbed. What is it, Commander? Korseth asked. High Admiral, we have a breach. A human battleship has penetrated our outer defenses and is heading toward the inner system. Korseth laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. One ship? You disturb me for one ship? Destroy it and file a report. Sir, this vessel has already destroyed 12 of our defensive platforms. It's using tactics we've never encountered. I recommend we raise the alert level and— Enough, Korseth interrupted. Commander, we have 600 warships stationed at Anchor Point 7. Our fortress has defended this system from entire fleets. One damaged human ship is not a threat. Deal with it quietly. I don't want panic spreading through the garrison over nothing. The communication ended. Vexrel felt frustration building in his chest. His superior officers didn't understand. They still thought of humans as the primitive warriors who had stumbled into galactic society decades ago. But Vexrel had studied the reports from the border skirmishes. He had read the intelligence files. Humans fought differently than any other species. They didn't follow the accepted rules of warfare. He turned back to his crew. Track that ship. I want to know where it's going. The tactical officer worked quickly. Commander, based on its current trajectory, the human vessel is heading directly toward the prison facility on Moon 7. The prison facility. Vexrel's stomach dropped. That's where the Kaldrith Empire held its political prisoners, including the 200 human colonists who had been captured 6 months ago during the border dispute. The colonists had been used as leverage in negotiations. The human government had protested, but hadn't taken military action. Until now. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the human ship, the communications officer announced. Audio only. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Play it, Vexrel ordered. A human voice filled the command center. It was female, calm, and absolutely certain. This is Captain Elena Kovacs of the United Nations Space Command vessel Indomitable. We are here to retrieve our people from the prison facility on Moon 7. This is your only warning. Release the prisoners and stand down, or we will take them by force. You have damaged our ship, but you have not stopped us. You will not stop us. Stand down or be removed. This is not a negotiation. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command center. Vexrel looked at his crew. They were all experienced warriors. They had fought in dozens of battles, but he could see uncertainty in their eyes. This human captain spoke with absolute confidence, even though her ship was barely functional and she was outnumbered by hundreds. Commander, what are your orders? His tactical officer asked. Vexrel made his decision. Deploy the patrol fleet. 30 ships. Intercept the human vessel before it reaches Moon 7. Disable it if possible, but use lethal force if necessary. He paused, then added, and send a priority message to all Kaldrith forces in the system. Inform them that we may have a situation developing. As his crew moved to carry out his orders, Vexrel pulled up the intelligence files on human military doctrine. What he read made his scales stand on end. Humans had evolved as both persistence hunters and pack hunters on their death world. They chased their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They worked together with terrifying coordination, and they had something the reports called an acceptable losses mentality. They would sacrifice themselves to achieve their goals. This was almost unknown among other species. Most civilized races valued individual survival, but humans seemed to value the mission more than their own lives. Vexrel watched the damaged human battleship continue its steady advance toward Moon 7. 30 Kaldrith warships were moving to intercept. The human captain had to know she was outnumbered. She had to know this was suicide, but she kept coming anyway. Captain Elena Kovac stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched the tactical display. 30 Kaldrith warships were moving to intercept her position. Each one was bigger and better armed than her damaged battleship. The smart thing to do would be to retreat, call for backup, follow proper military procedure. But there were 200 human colonists sitting in a Kaldrith prison, and Elena had not come all this way to leave them behind. "Status report," she said calmly. Lieutenant Chen spoke from the engineering station. His face was covered in soot and his uniform was torn. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We've sealed what we can, but we're losing atmosphere faster than we can replace it. Main weapons are at 40% capacity. Reactor is stable for now, but we've pushed it way past safety limits. One more major impact and we might lose containment. How long until the Kaldrith fleet reaches us?" Elena asked. 12 minutes at current speed, the tactical officer replied. "They're spreading out into an engagement formation. Standard encirclement pattern." Elena smiled. Standard. That was good. She could work with standard. "Helm, adjust course. Take us through the debris field from the platforms we destroyed. Maximum speed." "Captain, that debris is still hot. We could take more damage," the helmsman warned. "They'll expect us to avoid it." "Do it." The Indomitable turned and accelerated into the field of wreckage. Pieces of destroyed defensive platforms bounced off the ship's damaged armor. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge, but Elena kept her eyes on the tactical display. The Kaldrith ships hesitated at the edge of the debris field. They were being cautious. That gave her the advantage. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away in the Kaldrith command center, Vexrel was accessing the human military database. The Kaldrith Empire had intelligence on every spacefaring species. He pulled up the file on human warfare and began to read. What he found disturbed him deeply. Humans were the only known species that had evolved as both persistence hunters and pack hunters. On their homeworld, they had chased prey for days until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. They had hunted creatures 10 times their size by working together in coordinated groups. Even more disturbing, they had spent most of their recorded history fighting each other. The database showed image after image of human conflicts. Trench warfare where soldiers lived in mud for months. Naval battles where crews stayed at their posts while their ships sank beneath them. Aerial combat where pilots flew damaged aircraft back to base through sheer determination. The humans called it courage. The Kaldrith intelligence analysts called it insanity. Vexrel found a report from a Kaldrith observer who had studied human military academies. One passage made him read it twice to be sure he understood correctly. Human military doctrine emphasizes the concept of acceptable losses. They train their commanders to achieve objectives even if it means sacrificing personnel and equipment. They have a saying, "Mission first, people always." This appears to be a contradiction, but it means they will complete the mission at any cost, while simultaneously never abandoning their wounded or dead. This creates soldiers who fight with no fear of death because they know their comrades will recover their bodies. It is the most effective and terrifying military culture this observer has ever encountered. Vexrel closed the file and returned his attention to the tactical display. The human ship had emerged from the debris field. His 30 warships were closing in. He opened a communication channel to Fleet Commander Talvik, who was leading the intercept force. "Commander, be cautious. These humans do not think like we do." Talvik's face appeared on the screen. He looked confident, almost amused. "Commander Vexrel, I have 30 ships. They have 1 damaged vessel. This will be over in minutes. Just be careful," Vexrel warned. Back on the Indomitable, Elena watched the Kaldrith ships complete their encirclement. They had her surrounded. Exactly what she wanted. She turned to her crew. 89 men and women who had followed her on this unauthorized rescue mission. Every one of them knew they might not survive. Every one of them had volunteered anyway. All hands, this is the captain. Elena spoke into the ship-wide communication system. In a few minutes, we're going to engage 30 enemy warships. The odds are not in our favor, but we're not here to win a fair fight. We're here to send a message. We're here to tell the galaxy that if you take our people, we will come for them. No matter how far, no matter how many ships you have, we will come and we will not stop until our people are safe. She paused, then continued. The Kaldrith think we're going to fight like they do. Long range, safe distance. Minimal risk? They're wrong. We're going to show them how Earth fights. Close range, maximum aggression, and we're going to make them pay for every meter of space between us and our people. All stations prepare for combat. And remember, pain is temporary. Pride is forever. The crew responded with a cheer. Elena turned to her tactical officer. Target their sensor arrays and communication relays. We're not trying to destroy their ships. We're trying to blind them and cut them off from each other, make them fight as individuals instead of as a fleet. Aye, Captain. The Kaldrith ships opened fire first. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the Indomitable. The human battleship's point defense systems came to life, shooting down what they could. Several missiles got through. Explosions rocked the ship. More hull breaches. More casualties. But the Indomitable kept moving forward. Then it was their turn. The human ship fired, but not at the enemy vessels themselves. Instead, their weapons targeted the sensor pods and communication dishes on the Kaldrith ships. Several hits. Suddenly, 6 of the enemy warships were flying blind, their sensors damaged. They stopped advancing, afraid of colliding with their own forces. Vent atmosphere from the port side, Elena ordered. Make it look like we're losing containment. A massive cloud of gas erupted from the Indomitable's damaged hull. It spread out, creating a fog that confused sensors. The Kaldrith ships hesitated again. In that moment of hesitation, Elena struck. The Indomitable accelerated directly at the nearest enemy vessel. The Kaldrith captain tried to evade, but too late. The human battleship slammed into the Kaldrith warship's side, tearing through its armor. Both ships were damaged by the collision, but the human vessel pushed through and kept going. Vexrel watched in horror from his command center. That human captain was insane. The space around Anchor Point 7 had become chaos. The Indomitable moved through the Kaldrith fleet like a wounded animal, unpredictable and desperate. Every time the enemy ships thought they had the human vessel cornered, Captain Kovacs did something that made no tactical sense. And somehow it worked. Vexrel watched another Kaldrith warship explode on his display. That made 5 destroyed and 7 more damaged, all caused by one human ship that was barely holding together. He tried to understand the pattern of their attacks, but there was no pattern. The humans weren't following any known combat doctrine. They're using our own defensive grid against us, his tactical officer reported. The human ship just lured 3 of our vessels into range of Platform 42. The platform's automated systems identified them as threats and opened fire. Override the platform's targeting systems, Vexrel ordered. Set all automated defenses to manual control only. Already done, sir, but it will take time to update all platforms. Time was something they were running out of. The human ship was getting closer to Moon 7 with every passing minute. Vexrel opened a channel to Fleet Commander Talvik. The commander's face appeared on screen. He looked angry and frustrated. They won't fight properly, Talvik complained. Every time we get a firing solution, they do something suicidal and escape. They just vented their own reactor coolant to create a sensor blind spot. What kind of captain risks a reactor meltdown in the middle of combat? A human captain, Vexrel replied quietly. They have a concept we don't understand. Acceptable losses. They will sacrifice their ship if it means completing their mission. That's insane. Yes, but it's working. Vexrel closed the channel and pulled up casualty reports. 12 Kaldrith ships had been destroyed or disabled. Over 3,000 of his people were dead or wounded, all because of 89 humans on one damaged battleship. This was becoming a disaster. On the Indomitable's bridge, Elena gripped her command chair as another explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered and died, then emergency lighting kicked in. Red warning indicators covered every display panel. Lieutenant Chen's voice came over the intercom. Captain, we've lost main power to the weapon systems. Switching to backup generators. Hull integrity is at 30%. We have fires on 6 decks, and the reactor temperature is climbing into the danger zone. How long can you keep us running? Elena asked. Honestly, Captain, I don't know. We should have lost reactor containment 10 minutes ago. The engineering team is basically holding it together with spare parts and prayers. Then tell them to keep praying. We're almost there. Elena looked at the tactical display. Moon 7 was visible now, a gray sphere hanging in space. The prison facility was built into the moon's largest crater. She could see the defensive platforms surrounding it. Getting through those defenses would cost her ship everything it had left. But she had known that from the beginning. Tactical, what's the status of those Caldrith ships? She asked. 18 still operational. They're regrouping for another attack. But, Captain, they're keeping their distance now. They've learned that getting close to us is dangerous. Smart of them. Helm, take us straight toward Moon 7, maximum speed. Don't dodge, don't evade. Straight line. Aye, Captain. The Indomitable accelerated toward the moon. The Caldrith ships opened fire from long range. Energy beams scored the battleship's armor. Missiles exploded against the hull. The human ship shook with each impact, but it kept moving forward. Elena counted the hits, counted the damage reports, calculated how much punishment her ship could take before it fell apart. Down in the engineering section, Lieutenant Chen and his team worked desperately to keep the reactor stable. The containment field was fluctuating wildly. Coolant lines were leaking. The reactor core was glowing white-hot, way past safety limits. Chen knew they were minutes away from a catastrophic failure. But he also knew that up in the prison facility, 200 human colonists were waiting to be rescued. So he kept working. A young engineer named Martinez looked at Chen with wide eyes.
Sir, the reactor is going to breach.
We need to evacuate this section. No, Chen said firmly. Those colonists need us. The captain needs us. We stay at our post. But sir, I said we stay. That's an order. Martinez nodded and went back to work. Around them, the rest of the engineering team kept their hands on the controls, adjusting systems, rerouting power, doing everything they could to keep the ship running just a little bit longer. On the prison facility, alarms were blaring. The Caldrith guards ran through the corridors trying to understand what was happening. A single human ship had broken through their defenses and was heading straight for them. It made no sense. The human government had been negotiating peacefully for the release of the colonists. Why would they suddenly attack? In the cells where the human prisoners were held, a different kind of preparation was taking place. A man named James Reeves stood near the cell's communication panel. He was a former Marine, captured with the other colonists during a border patrol. For 6 months he had been planning an escape. He just needed the right moment. A moment of chaos when the guards were distracted. The alarms provided that moment. Reeves pulled a small device from where he had hidden it in his shoe. It was a signal receiver, smuggled in during a prisoner transfer. He had been waiting for a specific signal, a code that would tell him help was coming. The device beeped once, then twice, then a pattern of beeps that made Reeves smile. Everyone up, he called to the other prisoners. That's our signal. The cavalry is here. What? Someone asked. Who's here? The UNSC, they're coming for us. Now we do our part. When I give the word, we rush the guards, take their weapons, fight our way to the docking bay. Are you crazy? Another prisoner protested. There are hundreds of guards. We'll be killed. Reeves looked at the man with hard eyes. Maybe. But I'd rather die fighting than sit in this cell waiting for politicians to decide our fate. Anyone who wants to fight, stand up. Anyone who wants to wait, stay sitting. Every single prisoner stood up. Back in space, the Indomitable was approaching the prison facility's orbital defense platform. Vexeril watched in disbelief as the human ship showed no signs of slowing down. Surely they weren't going to. They were. The Indomitable slammed directly into the orbital platform at full speed. The impact was catastrophic. The platform's shields flared and died. Metal tore and twisted. Explosions rippled across both structures. The orbital platform broke apart, huge pieces of debris spinning away into space. The human battleship was even worse off. Its entire front section had crumpled like paper. Atmosphere poured from 100 breaches. But incredibly, impossibly, the ship was still functional. It had wedged itself into the platform's wreckage and was holding position. Vexerol received a report from the prison facility. The impact had knocked out their primary defenses. Their shields were down. And something else. The human prisoners had started a riot. They had somehow obtained weapons and were fighting their way through the facility. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "the human captain is broadcasting again." Elena's voice filled the command center. She sounded tired now, wounded but still determined. "This is Captain Kovacs. My ship is finished. We won't be leaving this position, but my Marines are coming for our people. You can't stop us. You never could." The corridors of the prison facility echoed with weapons fire and shouting. Kaldrith guards rushed toward the human cell blocks trying to contain the riot, but the prisoners had somehow obtained guard weapons and were fighting with desperate fury. The facility commander sent urgent requests for reinforcements. This was supposed to be a simple prison. Now it had become a war zone. Through the wreckage of the orbital platform, 40 human Marines moved in zero gravity. They wore combat armor and carried rifles designed for boarding actions. Leading them was Captain Elena Kovacs. Blood ran down the side of her face from a head wound, but she ignored it. Behind her, Sergeant Marcus Cole kept pace. He had fought beside Elena for 12 years and knew exactly what she was thinking. "Captain, you should stay on the ship," Cole said over the squad channel. "You're wounded. Let us handle this. Not a chance, Sergeant. Those are our people down there. I'm seeing this through to the end." The Marines reached the breach point in the facility's outer hull. Explosive charges were placed. Everyone moved back. The charges detonated, blowing a hole through the armored wall. Atmosphere rushed out into space, then emergency bulkheads slammed shut deeper in the facility. The Marines moved through the breach, weapons ready. Inside the facility, Kaldrith guards waited in defensive positions. They had orders to stop the human boarding party. When the humans came through the breach, the guards opened fire. Energy beams lit up the corridor. 2 Marines went down in the first seconds of combat. But the others didn't stop. They moved forward, firing as they went, using their fallen comrades' bodies as cover. The Kaldrith guards couldn't believe what they were seeing. The humans just kept coming. Even when hit, they kept fighting. One Marine took 3 shots to the chest. His armor stopped the first 2, but the third punched through. He fell to one knee, then pulled a grenade from his belt and threw it at the guard position before collapsing. The grenade exploded. The Kaldrith guards scattered. The remaining Marines pushed through, reaching the next corridor junction. Elena checked her tactical display. The prison cells were 2 levels down. Between her team and the prisoners were at least 50 more guards. "Second squad, split off and secure our exit route," Elena ordered. "First squad, with me. We're going to the cell blocks." The Marines moved quickly through the facility. They had trained for boarding actions like this 1,000 times. Every movement was precise. Every corner was checked before advancing. When they encountered resistance, they hit it hard and fast, then moved on. No time for prolonged firefights. Speed was everything. Commander Vexral watched the situation develop from his command center. He had sent a security team to the facility, but they wouldn't arrive in time. The humans were moving too fast. He made a decision he knew his superiors would question. He was going himself. If this was going to end, someone needed to talk to that human captain before everyone died. Vexral took a shuttle to the facility with a squad of elite guards. While his shuttle was in transit, he watched the battle through the security feeds. The human Marines were terrifying to watch. They fought with a coordination that seemed impossible. When one Marine ran out of ammunition, another would step in to cover them while they reloaded. When a Marine fell wounded, 2 others would grab them and pull them back without missing a beat. They never left anyone behind. In the cell blocks, James Reeves and the other prisoners were holding a corridor against Kaldrith reinforcements. They had 6 captured rifles and were making every shot count. A young woman named Sarah Chen crouched behind a barricade they had built from furniture. She was a hydroponics engineer, not a soldier, but she fired her weapon with steady hands, protecting the children they had moved to the back of the cells. "Reeves, we can't hold this much longer," another prisoner shouted over the weapons fire. "We're almost out of ammunition." "Just a little longer," Reeves called back. "The ship's here. The Marines are coming. I know they are." As if responding to his words, an explosion echoed from the far end of the corridor. The Kaldrith guards turned, confused. Then human Marines appeared, moving like a precision machine. The guards caught between the Marines and the prisoners didn't stand a chance. In less than 30 seconds, the corridor was secure. Elena rushed to the cell blocks. She saw the human prisoners dirty and tired but alive. Relief flooded through her. "Everyone here? Anyone seriously injured?" All 200 accounted for, Reeves reported. We have some injuries, nothing critical. Who are you? Captain Elena Kovac, UNSC Indomitable. We're here to take you home. Tears appeared in Reeves's eyes. You came. We didn't think anyone would come. We always come, Elena said simply. Now let's get you out of here. Marines, form up. Prisoners in the center. We move fast and we move together. The evacuation began. The group moved through the facility toward the breach point. The Caldrith had pulled back, regrouping for a major assault. Elena knew they wouldn't make it to the ship before being cut off. But she had planned for that. Commander Vexerol reached the facility and moved quickly to intercept the human group. He found them in a wide corridor moving toward the outer hull. Elena spotted him coming with his guard squad. She held up a hand and her Marines stopped. Both groups faced each other, weapons ready but not firing. Captain Kovacs, Vexerol called out. I am Commander Vexerol of the Caldrith Defense Fleet. Your ship is destroyed. You are surrounded. You cannot escape. Surrender now and I promise you will be treated fairly. Elena stepped forward. She was limping slightly, and her armor was scorched and damaged. But her voice was steady. Commander, with respect, I'm not interested in surrender. These people are under my protection. We are leaving with them. You are outnumbered 10-1. Your ship is dead. Be reasonable. Reasonable? Elena almost laughed. Commander, we traveled 3 weeks through hostile space to get here. We broke through your defenses with a damaged ship and a skeleton crew. We fought 30 of your warships with one. We crashed into your orbital platform and survived. And you think we're going to give up now? When our people are finally safe? Vexerol looked at the human captain. Her face was covered in blood and soot. She swayed slightly from exhaustion. Her armor showed multiple impacts that should have killed her. Behind her, the Marines looked equally battered. The rescued prisoners were scared and injured. This group should surrender. It was the logical choice. But Vexerol was beginning to understand that humans didn't think logically when it came to protecting their own. Why? Vexerol asked. Why would you sacrifice so much for 200 people? Your government didn't even authorize this mission. You are here without orders, without support. You have thrown away your career, your ship, and probably your lives. For what? Elena met his eyes. Because if we don't come for 200, why would 200 billion trust us to come for them? Every human needs to know that if they are in danger, someone will come. No matter how far, no matter the cost. That's what separates us from people who see lives as numbers on a report. The words hit Vexerol hard. In Caldrith military culture, commanders were taught to minimize losses, to preserve forces, to think strategically about acceptable casualties. But humans thought differently. They would sacrifice everything to save their people, even if it was illogical, even if it was suicide. I admire your dedication, Vexerol said slowly, but I cannot let you leave. I have my orders, Elena nodded. I understand. Then you should know, Commander, that my ship's reactor is set to overload. In about 45 minutes, it will explode with enough force to destroy this entire facility. I'm giving you time to evacuate your people. I suggest you start now. Vexerol felt his blood run cold. Vexerol stared at the human captain in disbelief. You're bluffing. You would kill everyone here, including your own people? Elena's expression didn't change. I've set a 1-hour timer. That gives you time to evacuate the facility. We have a shuttle hidden on the far side of the moon. We'll be gone before the reactor goes, but you need to start moving your people right now. You're insane, Vexerol said, but even as he spoke, he was pulling up his communication device. He knew she wasn't bluffing. Humans didn't bluff. They acted. All units begin immediate evacuation of Anchor Point 7 facility. This is not a drill. We have less than 1 hour. The facility erupted into controlled chaos. Caldrith guards and staff began moving toward evacuation shuttles. There were over 10,000 personnel on the facility. Getting them all out in less than an hour would be nearly impossible. But Vexerol had seen what humans were capable of. He wasn't taking chances. Elena motioned to her Marines. Move out. Stay sharp. If anyone tries to stop us, defend yourselves, but avoid casualties if possible. The group began moving through the facility. Caldrith personnel saw them coming and moved aside. No one tried to stop them. Everyone was too focused on evacuation. Elena led her people through corridor after corridor, checking her tactical display constantly. The hidden shuttle was 3 kilometers away across the moon's surface. They would have to go outside. 20 minutes later, the human group stood at an airlock. The rescued prisoners were fitted with emergency environment suits. The children were crying, scared by everything happening. Sarah Chen held a little girl close, speaking softly to calm her down. The Marines checked their seals and prepared to move outside. Vexrel watched from the facility's command center. He had ordered his shuttle to follow the human group at a distance. He needed to see this through. Around him, the facility was emptying rapidly. Evacuation shuttles launched continuously, carrying personnel to the waiting ships in orbit. He received a message from High Admiral Corseth. Commander Vexrel, explain what is happening. Why are we evacuating Anchor Point 7? Sir, the human ship's reactor is set to overload. We have 38 minutes until detonation. Can we stop it? No, sir. The ship is too damaged to approach safely, and any attempt to board it would take more time than we have. The human captain has won. There was silence on the channel. Then Corseth spoke again, his voice cold. This is unacceptable. A single ship has humiliated the Kaldrith Empire. When this is over, we will hunt down every human responsible. With respect, sir, I recommend against that course of action. What? Why, Vexrel chose his words carefully. Because this is not over. This is just the beginning. The humans have proven they can reach us anywhere. They have shown they will sacrifice everything to protect their own. If we retaliate, they will escalate. And I believe, after watching them fight, that humans are very good at escalation. The channel went silent. Vexrel didn't know if his superior agreed or not. It didn't matter. He had other concerns right now. On the moon's surface, Elena's group moved across the gray landscape. Earth gravity was stronger than the moon's low gravity, so the humans moved easily in the light conditions. The Marines kept watch for any threats. The prisoners stayed in the center of the group, helping each other across the rough terrain. James Reeves walked beside Elena. Captain, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why did you do this? This wasn't an authorized mission. You'll probably face a court-martial when we get home. Elena kept walking, her eyes on the horizon where their shuttle waited. 3 years ago, I was part of a patrol that got ambushed in deep space. Our ship was destroyed. I was trapped in an escape pod with a broken beacon. I floated in space for 6 days. No food, limited oxygen. I was ready to die. Then the UNSC Valiant found me. They had searched for 8 days, refusing to give up. The captain told me later that she would have searched for 8 more if necessary. Because we don't leave our people behind. She paused, then continued. I made a promise to myself that day. If anyone ever needed help, if any human was in danger and I could do something about it, I would, even if it cost me everything. Because someone did that for me once. And that's what we do. That's what makes us human. Reeves nodded, understanding. Around them, the other prisoners heard the story. They would remember it. They would tell their children and grandchildren about the captain who threw away everything to save them. The group reached the shuttle. It was a small transport vessel, barely large enough to hold everyone, but the Marines had hidden it well and it was undamaged. They began loading the prisoners aboard. The children went first, then the injured, then everyone else. The Marines went last, weapons still ready, still watching for threats. Elena stood outside until everyone was aboard. Sergeant Cole waited with her. Captain, we need to go. The reactor will blow in 20 minutes. I know. I just wanted to see it one more time. She looked back across the moon's surface toward the facility. Evacuation shuttles were still launching. The last groups of Kaldrith personnel were getting out. She had given them enough time. The mission was complete. Her people were safe. Okay, Sergeant. Let's go home. They climbed aboard the shuttle. The airlock sealed. The engines fired and the small vessel lifted off the moon's surface. It climbed rapidly, heading away from the facility. Behind them, the wreckage of the Indomitable sat wedged into the destroyed orbital platform, the battleship that had defied an entire empire to save 200 people. 16 minutes later, the reactor reached critical failure. The explosion was visible from orbit. The orbital platform was vaporized instantly. The blast wave hit the facility, ripping through the already evacuated structures. Secondary explosions followed as power systems overloaded. When the light faded, Anchor Point 7's prison facility was gone. The fortress was heavily damaged. The defensive grid was in ruins. On board the evacuation shuttles, Kaldrith personnel watched the destruction in a silence. Vexrel stood in his shuttle looking at the expanding cloud of debris. One human ship had done this. One captain and 89 crew members had broken through the most fortified position in Caldrith space, rescued their people, and destroyed a facility that had stood for 300 years. The human shuttle was long gone, heading toward the border where a UNSC carrier waited to pick them up. Vexrel had ordered his ships not to pursue. There had been enough death today. 3 days later, Vexrel sat before the Caldrith High Council. The chamber was enormous, filled with the Empire's most powerful leaders. They demanded answers. How had this happened? How had their defenses failed? What would be done about the humans? High Admiral Corseth called for immediate retaliation. Several council members agreed. But Vexrel stood and requested to speak. When silence fell, he told them everything he had learned about humans. He showed them the battle recordings. He explained human military doctrine. He described how they fought. And he told them about his conversation with Captain Kovacs. This was not a military defeat, Vexrel concluded. This was a message. The humans were telling the entire galaxy, that if you take their people, they will come. Distance doesn't matter. Odds don't matter. They will come and they will not stop. We can choose to learn from this message, or we can choose to test it further. You speak as if we should fear them. One council member said scornfully, "They are a young species. We have been spacefaring for thousands of years." "That is precisely why we should be cautious," Vexrel replied. "They have been spacefaring for 50 years. In that time, they have built a fleet that can challenge ours. They have developed tactics we cannot counter, and they have a military culture that values completing the mission above survival. What will they be capable of in another 50 years? Another 100? The council chamber fell silent. Finally, the Supreme Counselor spoke. "What do you recommend, Commander?" "Release all human prisoners immediately. Issue a formal apology. Propose a non-aggression pact. And never ever give humans a reason to come for us again." The debate lasted for hours, but in the end the council agreed. 1 week later, all human prisoners held by the Caldrith Empire were released. A formal treaty was signed. The border incident stopped. Captain Elena Kovacs returned to Earth. She was court-martialed for disobeying orders, theft of military property, and unauthorized military action. The trial lasted 3 days. The prosecution presented their case. The defense showed recordings of the rescued colonists testifying. In the end, Elena was found guilty and given a formal reprimand. She was also awarded the Star of Valor, the highest military decoration in the UNSC. The ceremony was attended by all 200 rescued colonists and their families. When asked if she would do it again, Elena simply smiled and said, "In a heartbeat." The UNSC Indomitable was gone, but its name lived on. 3 years later, a new battleship was commissioned. It was twice as large as the original, with better weapons and stronger armor. The name painted on its hull was Indomitable II. Its motto was simple: "We come for our own." In the Caldrith Empire, the story of Anchor Point 7 became required study in military academies. Officers learned about the battle not as a defeat, but as a lesson about what happens when you underestimate an enemy, a lesson about how determination and willingness to sacrifice can overcome superior numbers. Most importantly, a lesson about never backing a human into a corner. Commander Vexrel kept a recording of his encounter with Captain Kovacs. Sometimes late at night, he would replay it and think about her words. "If we don't come for 200, why would 200 billion trust us to come for them?" It was a philosophy that terrified him. A species that would risk everything for their own. What would they risk for their allies? What would they sacrifice for their beliefs? He hoped the galaxy would never have to find out, but he suspected deep down that someday it would. And when that day came, the universe would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The message had been sent. The message had been received, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.